Let's bring in Zachary Quinto and Daniel Montgomery, our senior editor. Zachary, that whole business with the rubber suit was so creepy on American Horror Story. And what I loved about it is it was teased in so slowly. You kept getting glimpses and foreshadowings of it. And then they surprised us. They weren't putting you in this suit. They were putting the Tate character. Were you creeped out like I was?
Well, yeah, they teased it out, and I had no idea that I would ever have to wear it when I first read about it. So I was like, oh, that's so creepy and cool. And then they were like, and you have to put it on. And then I was like, more creepy and less cool now. It was really, I think, a well-devised conceit in the through line of the season for sure.
It was, because it was so kinky, both in a kind of violent way, but yet also sexual way. I have to confess to being very skeptical about the show when I first started watching it. I'm thinking, hey, I expect a lot more from Ryan Murphy. I think, what am I getting? A traditional horror show here? And then, of course, it's not a traditional horror show. And the way the storylines were woven in, I was gripped. I crossed over into the Mooney zone on this show, so much so that I have to ask you right off the bat my most nagging question about American Horror Story, and it's this. Why don't you ghosts kill Jessica Lange? And or why isn't she afraid of you? You know, that is she just so evil on the show that she's as evil as you guys, so that you're not afraid of her?
Yeah. Also, she's just Jessica Lange, so I think that's the baseline. Like, she's too cool to be killed. And yeah, it's a good question, actually. I mean, she seems to live among them so easily, and with such power and confidence. It is a really interesting kind of question in terms of in terms of how much havoc they wreak and what odds they're at with one another. Her and the ghosts. But I guess she has plenty of experience with them, so she's around.
And then halfway into the show, it's revealed that the ghosts have the power to kill. That's not quite clear early on in the show, so all of a sudden you realize, for example, when you're fighting with her over the baby, and your character's saying, no, it's mine, and she's saying it's hers, she's, shoulder to shoulder, right up against you, mano a mano, and not afraid at all. She doesn't blink.
Yeah.
And I think that's, pretty much a testament to how tough her character is.
Yeah, or maybe she has some secrets that that give her some foundation of power that we weren't privy to before the end of the season. Who knows? We'll never find out now.
No, unfortunately. But God, I just love that show. Daniel, let me bring you in here. What questions do you have for Zachary?
Well, I was wondering, your character died a pretty grisly death in the first season. His neck snapped in a bobbing for apples bucket. Are you worried that Ryan Murphy might try to one-up himself this year, or are you looking forward to an even more twisted fate?
Well, I can't wait to find out what's going to happen this season, actually. I was just talking to Ryan recently, and, I feel like it's going to be so radically different. And the good thing about it is that we have so much momentum going into this season. So much energy from people's reactions to the first season that I think it's going to be more twisted, and I'm really excited about that.
Well, we do know this much, Zachary. Ryan has been saying, all right, whoever was evil in the first series is now going to be flipped. For example, Jessica Lange is going to play a kind of angelic character here, he says. I'm not sure if I'm quoting him quite correctly across the board, but it leads me to an interesting question about your character, and that is, your character is a victim as much as he has his own kind of mean streak into him. So let's assume for a second Ryan is going to do this. Is Chad a evil character in this show so that he'll now be a good character in season 2, or is he a good character who was just victimized in the first year, and now he's going to be bad? Or do you even have any idea?
Well, I know that I know a little bit about my character in the second season, but I don't know the extent of whether he's sort of what side of the coin he falls on in terms of good or evil. But I think Chad was. I don't think Chad was evil in the first year. I do think he was more of a victim than anything else, and striving to create some kind of life and normalcy for him and Pat, and I think that got foiled, but I don't really think that he was ever. I don't think his intentions were ever dark, and I don't know the degree to which that means my character in this year is going to be more dark or not. Who knows?
Now, there's this whole controversy this year about your show moving over from drama series where it competed at the Golden Globes to miniseries at the Emmys, and a lot of us think it's a brilliant strategic move. On one hand, it certainly makes your life easier as a contender, so if you're nominated, you don't have to pick a sample episode in the movie mini categories. Do you follow the Emmys very closely? Were you surprised by this? Do you have an opinion of your own on this matter?
I mean, I follow them, sure, and I was surprised. Yeah, I was surprised, but I feel like I also understand the thoughts process that went behind that. You know, the landscape of television is changing so much that I think for people to be aware of what they're contributing to the medium and where it fits in terms of acknowledgement, I think is really important. You know, I think it was a smart move, although I don't really think of it in terms of any kind of a personal impact. I think for the show it makes a lot of sense, and you know, I don't really. I was such a happy accident on the show, to be honest with you. I really, you know, I thought I was going to come in and do like a couple of episodes and be done, and the experience was so enjoyable, and it ended up being 4 episodes in the first season. Then Ryan came back and asked me if, you know, I would come back to the second season. I had a whole other trajectory kind of laid out for me, but then I thought, you know, he's really doing something with this show that has never been done on American television. I think that is hugely exciting, and then add to that the creative elements of the show and the integrity of the storytelling and the depth of the characters and the magnetic energy, you know, that it brings an audience in with. It just made perfect sense for me to stay on. So it was all kind of, I felt like an observer in the first season, you know, obviously a participating observer, but I feel much more now a sense of investment, a sense of a connection to the show going into the second season.
Well, Ryan now says you're going to be one of the leads of this show. That much we do know. So you're going to have a lot on your shoulders, Zachary.
Yeah, I mean, that's the greatest part about it, you know, is like giving all of us an opportunity to come back. You know, all of us who, I knew many of those actors before we started working on the show. Certainly Lily and Sarah are good friends of mine, and, you know, we all get to come back and play completely different characters in a completely different timeline that has no relevance or bears no relevance to what happened in the first season. And, you know, and the fact that he's sort of taking people, you know, who are more supporting characters in the first season, myself included, and elevating their characters and reshuffling things. I mean, it really is like tantamount to creating a repertory company of actors, which is so enormously exciting for me and I think for everybody.
We have a bunch of Twitter questions coming in, including from Nerdy Jen, who wants to know if you're still in contact with your Heroes co-stars.
Nerdy Jen, how are you, Nerdy Jen? Yeah, I am. I see them not as frequently as I'd like. You know, we're all scattered and doing some other stuff, obviously, but most recently I saw Greg Grunberg and Hayden, and Milo and I hung out while I was in New York last year, and, you know, I still am in touch with them, even though I don't see them as much as I'd like to.
Daniel, let me pass off to you. Do you have a question?
We're talking about American Horror Story and the Emmy race, but not too long ago you were also sort of a part of the Oscar discussion. You were a star and a producer on Margin Call, which received a nomination for its screenplay. I was wondering what made you get into producing and how you choose your projects.
You know, I recognize an opportunity presented to me with the exposure that came along with Heroes and then obviously with Star Trek, and I just felt I felt it was incumbent upon me to take that opportunity and not let it pass me by, you know, and so it was a real confluence of timing and availability with my business partners, both of whom are very good friends of mine from college, and we started talking about it, and then it started to evolve, and we started the company, and then we set out to find our first project to produce, and through a mutual acquaintance of ours and the director, we met J.C. Chandor, who wrote and directed Margin Call, and it just became abundantly clear unanimously to all of us right away that this was the kind of project that we wanted to get behind, and you know, it was socially relevant, it was operating on a lot of levels, there was a lot of complexity and character depth, and ultimately, I felt like it drew an audience into a conversation without telling them what to feel or what to think. You know, and those are some of the criteria that we use to choose our projects. We're about to start production on JC's second film down in Mexico in a few weeks, actually. So, you know, obviously we're real champions of his, and now we're really sort of invested in a collaboration and a relationship with him moving forward, and also first-time feature directors, which now he's a second-time feature director, but a lot of our other projects are with first-time feature directors, because I believe strongly in sharing the opportunities that were afforded to me that changed my life and changed my experience as an actor, and I love to be able to do that with other people.